On.
How you doing? This is Stan, your history man, and we're coming to you with an exciting video. Uh, First of all, before I say anything about this video, let me give you a little background on the previous video that I made on how to research your family members and put them on a family tree. And if you haven't seen that video, go back and look at that video because this is a part two of that video. See, after you have put your family names on your family tree, you putting what first of all you're gonna start out by putting all the information that you know on your family tree, names and dates and everything. Now that you have completed your family tree and you put as much information that you know, then you want to start interviewing your family members and see how much information they know and how much it can aid you as far as putting additional information on your family tree. You want to put names, dates, and birthdays and everything. In order to do this, you're going to have to conduct a interview with your family members. And this is what this video is all about, conducting the interview. Now, I know you're excited and you're ready to get started, but first of all, you need to know some do's and don't do before you start conducting your interview. Because if you don't get this right, then you're going to turn off a lot of family members, and you don't want to do that because it's going to be difficult for you to complete your family tree, and it's going to be difficult for you to go back in time and find out about other relatives because this information is just going to be a starting point and it's going to be the foundation that you're going to be working from. So you want to get this right first. Now, the first person that you want to interview or the first people that you want to be the interview is probably going to be your parents. So you want to do this right. Now, if your parents are still living, if you're living in the house with them, or if you don't live in the house with them, then you still need to be very professional with your first interview. Now, pick out a good time for them while they're not busy and they don't have a lot of other things going on their mind, and tell them you want to talk to them about 10 to 15 minutes. Your first interview should be no more than 10 to 15 minutes, even if it's with your grandparents or your great grandparents or uncle or auntie. Keep it about 15 minutes. Because if it's too long, you're going to turn them off, and you know they're going to tell other family members, and other family members won't consent to an interview if they know you're going to keep them an hour or two asking them different questions and stuff. So you want to keep it about 15 minutes long. First of all, you want to have a list of questions wrote down. Now, if you can see this paper here in front of me, I do have a list of questions, but you're not going to ask them all of these questions. Not during the initial interview. You want to ask them enough questions that it's going to take up 15 minutes of their time. So you want to pick out some important questions to ask them. Have your questions already wrote down so you can easily go through them with them. Don't ask open-ended questions. Ask specific questions as you going along. Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about the early childhood and family background. That's one of the first places you want to start. And your parents and your family members. You can ask them, when were you born? Where were you born at? And tell me about your family background. See. And number three is, where was your family originally from? Now, they're going to give you specific dates in, like mine, Cherokee County, Alabama. You know, they're going to tell you Cherokee County, Alabama, in a place called House Cross Road, or Cherokee County, Alabama, in a place called Ball Play. Then they narrowing it down for you. So you know you're going to start looking for family members in those two places. And the B part is community you grew up in. You're going to ask them to describe a little bit about the community and describe a little bit about your childhood. And that's going to help you out a lot because they may be talking about places and things and stuff like that. And that's going to aid you when you're searching for birth records and You're looking for different cemeteries and churches and things of that nature. And so the early schooling, what was school like for you? What did you like about it? And what was hard about it for you? Now, I don't waste a whole lot of time on early schooling other than trying to find out what was located and stuff like that. Um, then I'm going to go to friends and interests. And why is that important? A lot of time, information that you can't get out of your family members, you may have to go to friends that lived in the community. Maybe it's an elderly person. They may have grew up with your family, so they may can provide you with additional information. That's why that is important. And we're going to talk about the teen years with them, and then we're going to, of course, adulthood. And basically, there's a number of questions that you can ask about each category, and that might depends on you. So you can actually just uh, ask at least 15 minutes worth of questions. And then you're going to get a little bit more in depth with them on the second interview. So if you do this one right, there will be a second interview. If you don't do this right, there may not be a second interview. So make sure you have a notepad so you can write down notes and tell them that you're writing down notes. Don't blindside them. Have a recorder there. Tell them you have a tape recorder. Nowadays, I use my phone. Tell them you're going to video record them as well as audio record them. If they consent to it, fine. Don't assume because it's your parents that they going to consent to that. A lot of people don't want to be interviewed that way. So ask. Don't ever assume. And tell them that you're recording it. Tell them that you're writing down information on them. And I do that all the time when I sit down for an interview. I be as transparent as possible, and I make people feel good about the interview as we go along. So make them feel good about it, and tell them what you're using it for. And I always tell them, I'm just trying to gather up information because it's going to be lost, and somebody got to do it. And this is Stan the History Man, and this is just the preliminary, and we're going to be getting a little bit deeper in this as we go along. And as a matter of fact, I have wrote 2 books on my family. And yes, I have had family members that didn't consent to interviews. And I'll talk about that a little later on. So even if they don't consent to an interview, sometimes you still can pull information out of them without really interviewing them. And I'm going to talk about that a little later on. So this is Stan, your history man, and stay tuned for part 2, and we're going to talk about the interviewing process in a little bit more detail.